So I'm finally going to try and get back out and make another video on rebuilding the front axle on this b6000 that I have. It's been a few weeks. Just because between it being cold and there being a holiday season and me getting sick, I just haven't really found the time to get back out here. I'm just working out here in my uninsulated tin box, so when it gets cold, it's not very fun, but I'm going to try and remedy that here in a few days. But for now, I'm going to talk about some issues that I've run into, and hopefully I'm going to be able to come up with some remedies for that. But we'll get into it. So the first problem that I'm going to talk about will be this axle shaft that I ordered. The one of these that came off the machine. It's got a little bit of wear. I didn't like it. I was going to try and find one to replace it, see if it'd be a bit better. The place that I ordered this from, I didn't really have the option to look at it. I couldn't really tell what I was ordering. I just gave them the part number from a website online, and from what I can tell, this part is actually right for the part number that I gave. The diagram that I was looking at for this b6000, I thought I was getting something like this, but I guess there are two different versions of this axle. There's quite a few similar parts, but they're not completely the same. Obviously these are not the same, so I'm just gonna have to try and reuse this old one, and that kind of goes into the next set of problems I've had. So the next set of issues that I'm running into with this is that I ordered a whole bunch of parts. I just went online, looked at the parts diagrams on a Kubota parts dealer website, and I was like, got all the bearings and seals, we're gonna be all right. But once they got here and I got to looking at it, obviously, since this is the style that they have on their website, the outer seal, the bearings for this part right here, they were all wrong. So I've already gone ahead and sent them back, but they were just way too big to fit what I have here. These are the ones that I have, and so what I'm going to try and do is, since this is probably a pretty standard seal, and so is this one for the pinion, I'm just going to try and measure them up and see if I can find some online. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. I think I could probably get this seal, which is the one that seals the outside of this axle. I don't think there's a problem with getting that one. This one might be a little bit harder to find. Still, probably will be able to find it, but if not, it wasn't leaking when I took it off, and I might be able to get away with just sticking it back on there, but I'm kind of just losing patience with this project at this point. It's been too long in the making, and just want to get it done before it never gets done. Another issue that I'm running into is finding universal joints. I think this machine uses 4 of the same. There's 2 on the drive shaft that goes from the rear transaxle up to the front axle. This is just the forward universal joint on that assembly. The other one is still out there on the tractor with the axle shaft, and the other 2 they just go on the end of these axle shafts. But the 2 that are inside the axle shafts, inside the axle, they look all right. They don't have any play. They look fine. They haven't really been exposed to any elements because they've been inside the sealed knuckle. So I think I can get away with not replacing those. But I'm going to have to come up with something for this. The problem with it is that, while I'm sure that I could order it from Kubota, I'm sure that it would fit. It's just that they're about $90 a piece, and I feel like that's kind of a little crazy. So I'm gonna see if I can just measure this once again, just measure how wide it is on the cross part on that universal joint, and then the cap diameter, and I'm gonna see if I can find some of those. Looking online, I can't find any dimensions for those. They vary widely on what people are saying they are, so I just need to measure what I have. But I'm also gonna hopefully try and just find some standard part for that. So hopefully the last issue, and maybe it's not even an issue, we'll see, but on this outer knuckle assembly, they have this O-ring that's supposed to go in here, and there's a little pieces of metal that hold that in place out against this ball. And then there's this felt gasket that goes on top of that with another little set of metal rings bolted down on top of that to hold it all together. But the issue I think I'm gonna have is not with the felt. The felt gasket looks like it's good, but this O-ring that I got, I think it's too big for what I've got going on. I might be able to kind of just squish it in there. It might be able to work. I mean, with this gap down here, it might work out, but I'm not sure how that's gonna going together. The reason I'm kind of doubting this is gonna work is because I was reading on a forum online before I started on this project, and someone on there was saying that the front axles on the b6000 models of Kubota tractors shared a lot of the same parts, or probably pretty much the same. So they should have a lot of parts interchangeability, but I don't think that's the case, because I ordered this from the b6100 because the ones on the b6000 were no longer manufactured. I couldn't get them. So it seems like it might be too big. I'm gonna hopefully, if this doesn't seem like it's gonna work, I'm just gonna try to get a large, just an O-ring online, just measure inside of this, and then the outside dimension on this ball here to get something that's pretty close that I can hopefully sandwich in there and will serve its purpose. I mean, really in here, it's not really holding any oil. I mean, when you grease the top kingpin on the outside, it fills this whole cavity up with grease, and I think that's what oil or greases the universal joint. I think it's also what's supposed to grease the thrust bearing down here that takes all the weight, and then also the lower kingpin. So I think this whole cavity is supposed to be full of grease. It's not oil, so I think it's just to help retain that. But I don't know if anyone who watches this video has any suggestions on that, recommendations. I'd like to hear about them, but we'll go from there. So the first part that we're going to try and measure will be this universal joint. But the issue I'm having is that at some point in its previous life, someone just welded the shield on here to this yoke. So I'm going to have to take the angle grinder and try and cut the little weld bead off. And for like the two people that are going to be curious, I use these Bauer Harbor Freight tools, the battery power tools. I would really like to have something like Milwaukee, but I just can't really afford it. But these, I haven't had any problems with them. They work fine. I mean, I'm not like torture testing them. I'm not dropping everything in water and all that crap like everyone else does, or like people who are durability testing these cordless tools are. But for me, they work just fine. They're a lot cheaper. I mean, like that battery from Milwaukee's probably be something like $200, and that one's like $60. So good price, good tools. But anyway, that was a little side tangent. I'm gonna try and get the shield off. So took the angle grinder, tried to grind these 2 tacks off. I mean, the battery that I grabbed was dead, so kind of didn't do the best job. But now I'm just gonna try and beat it out of here. We'll see how that goes. So we almost got it there, but the top of this yoke is all mushroomed out. So I'm probably not gonna be able to get it out the rest of the way. But I think I should be able to just get my snap ring pliers in there. There's a snap ring in here to pull this yoke apart and get that out of there to measure it. So I'm gonna go back inside for that. So now that I've got this yoke driven out of this shield a little bit here, we can kind of get out these snap rings. I took the wire brush to it and a screwdriver to try and get as much of the rust and crud out of there as I could. But I think these are probably going to be a pretty good bear to get out of here. I'll just try it real quick with the snap ring pliers, but I might have to get out the torch and heat it up or whatever to try and get these loose. But let me just try and use my snap ring pliers, and we'll bring it back after. These pliers would be cool, but they don't really switch over. So if anyone is ever going to Harbor Freight to get some snap ring pliers, and you see these Quinn branded reversible deals, you know, they sound cool, but I'd probably just stay away from them because they don't ever like to switch. I mean, this is my second pair. I broke the first in like 5 seconds. I probably just didn't know how to use them, but after getting a second one, you know, they just don't really seem to work. Because right now I'm trying to trade it over to be an internal snap ring from the external, and yeah, they just jam up and seem like you're gonna break them. All right, so after I successfully broke my snap ring pliers, and failing to use just a regular small pair of pliers to get this little internal snap ring out, I'm just gonna set this aside for a few minutes because it's getting a little dark outside and kind of running out of light in here. So we're gonna just try and measure these real quick. And this honestly is something that I really haven't ever done, but the way that I understand it is that, you know, if you have your seal, you can measure the outside, and you know, we're not gonna really get a good inside measurement off of this, but the measurement that we want to get off of this is how thick it is. And then the other two measurements, of course, is how the overall diameter, so the OD, you're gonna want to measure that, which corresponds with the, you know, inner diameter of this hole right here where it'll go into. And then you want the inner diameter of this seal, and we'll get that by just measuring the outer of this. So you get your 3 dimensions, and then you'll also want to determine what kind of seal. So this one, I believe, is going to be a double lip, because there's an inner lip right here at my fingertip. There's this outer one right out here. So that's kind of what you're looking for the information when measuring a seal. And I'm not sure about this style where it has this lip right here. I think it's, for this, they call this a pinion seal. At least that's what they call it online, or what I've been able to find out. So I think you'll just get the outer diameter and the inner diameter, and maybe the thickness. I'll measure that anyway. Maybe the thickness up to the bottom side of that flange right there. I'll just get a few measurements and see what I can come up with online. So to get the outer diameter of this seal, we're just going to take a pair of calipers and we're just going to run it out in here. And you know, it's not an exact measurement on there, but I think I'm going to call that 45. And I've got it to millimeters because this is a Japanese made tractor, so they use the metric system. So that'll be the outer diameter for this seal. And for the inner diameter on this seal, we'll just measure the outside of the shaft right here. And it's not exact again, but that we'll call that 28 millimeters on the outside. There's probably just a little variation in where I've got that side to side, so I know it's upside down, but we'll call that 28 millimeters. And last but not least, we got the thickness measurement on the seal. It's gonna be kind of hard to do it one-handed, but you know, you just take your calipers and you measure the outside of that, and this was about 12 millimeters, so close enough. We'll just call it 12. So the dimensions I had on that one were 28 millimeter inner diameter, a 45 millimeter outer diameter, and then 12 millimeter thickness. And this is a double lip seal, so that should be all the information I need on this one. And for the pinion seal, I'll just repeat the process. We'll measure the inner diameter of this plate or housing or whatever you want to call it. Inner diameter of that equals the outer diameter of the seal, and then we'll measure the outside of the pinion shaft here, over here where the seal rides. So that outer diameter will correspond with the inner diameter on this seal. And I'm not sure, I don't think it'll matter, but I'm going to just go ahead and get the thickness measurement on this. So we'll go from there. So our outer diameter, our outer diameter on this seal is looking like it's going to be about 35 millimeter. I mean, this is measuring a little bit small, but I'm sure that it's probably intentional so that it's a press fit. So if we do order the 35, it'll stay in there. It could also just be the inconsistencies with my measuring, but it's close enough. We'll call it 35. And for the inner diameter on the seal, it's looking like it's going to be about 20 millimeters. And for the last measurements I took on this pinion seal, I'm not sure how crucial they're going to be, but I measured from the bottom side of that flange lip right there, just to the bottom edge of the seal, and I got 7. And it looks like it's got an 8 millimeter overall thickness. So it's 2 days later now. I got all these snap rings or circlips, whatever you want to call them. I got them out. I had to take a punch and just smack in the cap a little bit, and then I also took the punch and tapped around the clip on the edge there to try and loosen it up, and it worked. And then I was able to drive this out enough to get this one cup off, but I can't get this other cup off. I just don't have enough clearance, and this isn't going to go back in there not going to go back into the end of the yoke there. It's just too tight and rusty. But I did end up measuring it. These caps are 20 millimeters across, and then I measured from end to end on the cap, and I got about 58 millimeters. It was hard because I was kind of just measuring when it was still in here, just eyeballing it a little bit, but it's about 58 millimeters. So I'm gonna go online and see what I can figure out. I know that they have plenty of universal joints with a 20 millimeter cap. I just don't know about the 58 millimeter width. But if I can get something that's kind of close, I think it'll work. I mean, I can probably shim it up in there, put something between the end of the cap and where the clip goes to keep it from moving side to side, or you know, we'll make it work. But to get it the rest of the way apart, I'm just gonna cut these out, because this universal joint's already ruined, and I think I've got close enough measurements to make it work. So once I cut this universal joint, I was able to get these two yokes apart. And then, since I already measured this, I'm pretty sure this will be a 22 millimeter by 58 millimeter U-joint. I'm gonna try and come up with something online, but I'm just gonna start wire brushing everything. That's kind of what I'm gonna start showing in the next video. I'm gonna wire brush it, did a little spot here just to get rid of this lighter blue paint color and scuff it up a little bit to paint. Clean all the parts up, get them ready for assembly. Then I think I'm going to assemble it completely and then do a full repaint on everything once it's assembled, just so I don't have to mask everything off. And mostly because the paint that this blue paint from Kubota, I opted to just get it from them. Since where I live, I cannot order stuff online, and it's kind of hard to get, but it's about $37 per 12-ounce spray can. So I'm gonna try and just minimize all the paint waste, and I think that spraying it all on one would have less overspray and make it so that I can more efficiently use the paint. And then talking about the two seals that I need to order. This one exterior seal on the axle shaft and this pinion seal. I went online. I measured this one to be about 12 millimeters. I mean, that was kind of probably measuring up to that part that sticks up there. But the only one I could find for this dimension, I think, was 28 in the middle and 48 on the outside. Or not 48, 45 millimeters on the outside. The only one I could find was a 10 millimeter thick one, so I'm gonna order some of those. And then I couldn't find this pinion seal with this metal ridge around the outside, so I just got a regular double lip seal with a 7 millimeters that sticks down into there. The same dimensions on that one. I think those two should work. And once I find a U-joint and then reorder some more bearings that were wrong from my initial purchasing, then we should have all the parts to put it back together. With this O-ring that goes on the outside here, or around this ball knuckle, I think I am going to try and use these ones. There's going to be a little bit of space down here where it can kind of, all the excess, if it's a different size, the larger size can kind of fill in this void. And I don't really think it's super critical, but since I have these ones, I'm just going to try and use these. And I mean, hopefully it'll work out, but I'm just trying to get this done so I can move on, start on the next set of projects that I have. So yeah, for everyone who stopped in to watch this video of mine, I'd like to thank everyone, and yeah, have a good day. I also just wanted to do a quick apology. I'm new to this videoing of things, and I kind of ramble a lot and say a lot of ums and ers, and sometimes I forget that I'm supposed to be filming things and kind of get ahead of myself, but if you just stick in there with me, I'll try and do better and hopefully produce some better content. But anyway, thanks.
What are you doing? Hi, Smokey.